Where are the transitional forms between all forms of life that we see today? And we're going to get to that in a second. The Cambrian fossil record, we find all main kinds of living creatures were there. All the main phyla were there. Animals with backbones, animals without backbones. The Cambrian explosion destroys the idea that all living things evolved from simple ancestors. It destroys that idea. But you know, the Cambrian explosion is not talked about very much in public school science classes. My daughter was at Lake Zurich High School. She didn't study it. She didn't study the problems about the Cambrian explosion. It's not taught. They may mention the Cambrian period, but the problems with it are not taught to our public school students. Here's Darwin's tree of life. And as you know, I explained it already. Darwinian evolution would say that organisms began very simply in the beginning, one cell that led to two-cell organisms, then multiple-cell organisms, and then the complex forms of life that we see today with the branches of that tree becoming wider and wider at the top. Well, what the evidence is finding is the exact opposite. The exact opposite of that. You need to know that. It supports the biblical account that God created things and they gave birth according to their kind. That's what the evidence is showing. The tree really has to look like this. Let me get back there. The tree has to look like this, wide at the bottom, and then over time, various forms of life became extinct. We see that today. That's happening today. Various forms of life becoming extinct. That happened from the very beginning. What we're seeing today happened from the very beginning. I want to show you a video clip of some Chinese scientists that have found an amazing Cambrian rock formation, the best in the world, the best preserved in the world. Now, these Chinese scientists are not creationists. They are evolutionists. But as they are looking at the evidence, and this has been reported over the last few years, it's commonly known in the scientific community, they're finding that the evidence points against Darwinism, Darwinian evolution. Here, let's watch this clip together.
Most geologists date the Cambrian explosion at 530 to 520 million years ago.
The Cambrian explosion has been called life's Big Bang, or at least animals' Big Bang, because in the Cambrian explosion, most of the major forms of animals appear very suddenly in a geological sense. From nothing, we have almost everything, almost overnight, geologically speaking. This remains mysterious. Nobody really understands how this happened.
Darwin believed that his mechanism must act slowly through small, gradual, incremental changes. And as a result, he expected to find many transitional intermediate forms from the very simplest organisms to the first animals.
Darwin knew about the Cambrian fossil record, and he considered it a serious problem for his theory. He hoped that future fossil collecting would fill in the gaps somewhat and make the theory more plausible. But in fact, 150 years of continued fossil collecting have made the problem worse. Many more types of animals were involved than Darwin knew about. So it's actually more of an explosion now than Darwin thought it was.
My textbook gives a one-sentence statement, just that there was this Cambrian explosion of life. But then it goes on to give a traditional Darwinian theory as to this slow, gradual evolving process.
DeHart wanted to supplement the solitary sentence in the biology textbook with an article that appeared in the Boston Globe. The article reported on cutting-edge research by Chinese scientist J.Y. Chen, an internationally respected paleontologist at the Nanjing Institute of Paleontology and Geology. Chen's discoveries in the fossil beds in Xinjiang, China, have rocked the scientific establishment. Located in the province of Yunnan in southern China, Xinjiang has some of the world's best preserved fossils from the Cambrian era.
Darwinism has maybe only telling a part story for evolution.
According to Chen, the fossils he's discovered turned Darwin's tree of life upside down.
Darwin's tree, reverse condition, very unexpectedly, our research is convincing major phyla starting down below at beginning of Cambrian. Base is wide, gradually narrow, so this is almost turned on different way.
I do not believe that animals developed gradually from the bottom up. I think the animals suddenly appeared. Among the Xinjiang animals, we have found 136 different kinds of animals, and they represent diversity in the level of phyla and classes. So the sudden appearance makes them very special.
That the phyla, major phyla, suddenly appear. That goes directly against the theory of evolution, which says it gradually occurred over time. You know, you sometimes wonder if evolutionists realize the contradiction even in their own writings. When you read some of their statements about the Cambrian explosion, when they do address it, here's an evolutionist and what he says about the Cambrian explosion. 500 million years ago, the remarkably complex forms of animals we see today suddenly appeared. That's not what Darwinian evolution demands. Things don't suddenly appear. The moment right at the start of Earth's Cambrian period, about 550 million years ago, marks the evolutionary explosion that filled the seas with the world's first complex creatures. There's a number of statements in there that go directly against Darwinian evolution and its theory. Did not happen over millions and millions of years. It happened, quote unquote, overnight, suddenly. All of these forms existing. Another article came out in the Washington Times in 2000 about these findings. Here's another Chinese scientist speaking about these findings. Paleontologist Li was also direct, and I'm just taking some quotes out of this article. Evolution should be built on gradual change. Mutation plus mutation, creating the species and then the genera and then the family. So how can these animals suddenly appear? Great question. That's the right question to be asking. How can that happen? Western scientists, that's American scientists, European scientists, would have none of it. It doesn't matter if you find it or not, declared German biologist Dieter Walosek. You know, those Germans are always causing problems, those Germans. I'm married to one, that's why I can say that. Rallying his Western colleagues around him. Listen to what this Western scientist says. It's there. It's by law. All of the major taxa should have been there in the Precambrian, whether proved or not. Don't give me the evidence. We have a law, and that's how they treat evolution. We have a law. It's called evolution. And even though you can't find any of those phyla in the Precambrian era, which it should have been there should have been a slow development over millions of years. They're saying it's not there. These Chinese scientists are saying, no, they suddenly appeared. It's not there. This is the evidence. We don't care what you say. We have a law, and it's there. Well, it's not. It's not there. But this is how it's treated. Here's some other quotes. As the Chinese scientists are responding to this battle from the Western scientists. Darwinism, Science or Religion is the name of the article. In the beginning, evolution was advanced. These are Chinese scientists speaking, by the way. In the beginning, evolution was advanced as a scientific hypothesis, one that should be under serious scrutiny from all angles. What they're saying is, it's a theory. Let's look at it from all angles. Let's look at all the evidence. Why are we rejecting this evidence? The article concluded that because of the need to contend with creationists, evolutionists in America and in Europe realized there's two options: evolution or an intelligent designer. Evolution or a designer. The article concluded that because of the need to contend with creationist scientists, these are what the Chinese scientists are saying, the Western scientists became hypersensitive to any dissent from their immature science. That's how creation science is viewed by Western scientists. Immature. Why? Because we see design in the universe, and we see a designer behind it all. Other scientists who are evolutionists say, no, we must have a naturalistic explanation. We're not going to allow God or some intelligent designer to come into the picture. Well, they are, by the way, and we're going to talk about that, I believe, next week as we talk about a theory that does bring in intelligent design. It's aliens, not God.